Hello dear students, this is Neha Sharma. Today in this video we are going to start poem number 1 and the name of the poem is Mending Wall, which is the second section of unit number 1, Care and Concern. This unit is divided into two sections, where first story we have done is Being Neighborly. That was a story of two neighbors, right, and we learned that how to be good neighbors. Here also Mending Wall is related to neighbors, right. Here something we have to learn about neighbors. So this is a wall, very good poem actually, which is a dramatic narrative poem written by Robert Frost, right. And when we talk about Robert Frost, he was a popular American poet, and this poem was first published in 1914, right. Through this poem, Robert Frost tried to explore the way people isolate themselves physically and emotionally by building barriers like fences to derive a sense of safety. This is happening nowadays also, right. Actually nowadays it is must actually to keep oneself isolated, because we have to save ourselves from this COVID-19. But generally this is a general tendency actually, and that Robert Frost want to express and want to describe through his poem, that these barriers are of no use, right. So this we will learn here. When we talk about the form of the poem and the structure of the poem, so the poem is composed in a blank verse. So this blank verse, what is this blank verse? First we have to understand this. Blank verse is actually without any rhyming scheme. And when we talk about the rhyming scheme is what? When we see the last word of each line in the poem and the sound of that word we use to match with the next line's word, right. If they are matching, if they are comparing, making a pair, so there we give that rhyming structure, right. So here, because the poem is written in 46 lines, it is too long poem, so Robert Frost thought that it should be written in blank verse, right. And when we talk about the theme of the poem, as I've told you that this poem Mending Wall revolves around the wall dividing the two neighbors' property, and every year they meet to repair the stone wall after new gaps are found in it, and the narrator believed that the wall should not exist at all, for he could not find a real reason for putting up the wall, and but the neighbor his neighbor wanted it to be there, as he believed in that old proverb, which is the last line of page number 23. This is a old saying that good fences make good neighbors. So he believes in that. That's why he wanted that there should be walls. So the speaker also argues the nature does not like such walls between men. That is why the mysterious gaps appear and boulders fall for no reasons. But the neighbor won't pay heed to any reasons, and he simply repeats the saying that good fences make good neighbors, right. When we talk about the title Mending Wall, so mending means what? Let's understand the meaning of mending here. See, mending is used as a verb also, and mending is used as an adjective also, right. So this poem Mending Wall is ambiguous, as word mending can be used as a verb and an adjective. When it is used as a verb, it signifies an act of involving the speaker and the neighbor where they mend the wall. But when used as an adjective, mending implies a distinguished relationship that the speaker and his neighbor share, which they are trying to mend. And when we talk about this mend means to repair, right. So let's see what poet says in his poem. this paragraph, the stanza is having 1 to 4 lines. First 4 lines we will study here, and the poet says here that something there is that does not love a wall, that sends frozen ground swell under it, and spoils and spills up upper boulders in the sun, and makes gaps between two can pass abreast. So here you have to note two words. One is boulders. Boulders are what? Boulders are the stones, right? Like large, it may be large, it may be small, and which are used to for the walls, right? So that is called boulders. You can see here the boulders, these are called boulders, the stones. Some are big, some are small, right? And second word here is abreast. Abreast means along the side of each other, right? Or it may be facing the same direction. So what does the poet say here in the first line? Something there is that doesn't love a wall. So poem is actually here starting with an observation that there is something actually in the nature that does not like wall. In the poem Mending Wall, nature acts as a third character alongside the speaker and his neighbor, even though this has not explicitly mentioned, right? Because this something, actually he is saying that something is there who or which does not want that there should be barriers between the properties of two neighbors, right? So the starting line here refers to something which opposes creating a wall, right? By differentiating something from someone, he marks his stand that those are not humans but things which are keeping from building the wall, right? When we talk about this term, word wall, so this wall here present an example of the metaphor to explain both kind of barriers. And which kinds of barrier there may be? There may be mental and physical, right? So this word is telling this these words, right? So the term wall here presents an example of metaphor to explain both kinds of barrier, which is mental and physical too. When we talk about third line, so the third next line, that sends the frozen ground, swell under it and spills the upper boulder in the sun. So here these lines present a powerful image of something, right? We have read here something which causes the cold ground under the wall to swell and burst, because Robert Frost is saying that there is something, it may be nature, because, right? So it is the activity done by nature that it is happening, that the ground under the wall actually creates the gap here, and the ground bursts in the way that the boulders come splitting out from within the outside, like this. You can see here that wall he is mending and the boulders, they have fallen down, right? So it may be due to the activity of nature. Now it merely explains the view of speaker that something wanted to keep the wall from being constructed, so it crumbles from the natural action, right? This is not done by any human being, but this is done by natural actions. So this is a beautiful use of actually the personification of the unseen force of nature, and the nature breaks the wall because it does not like to stay there, right? When we talk about the next line, and makes gap even two can pass abreast. So this last line says the speaker here wants to say that the crumbling of the wall due to the natural activity makes gaps where the two neighbors can pass through easily, and this is done by natural activities. So I hope you understood this 1 to 4 lines. When we talk about next lines, this is divided into 5 to 11 lines to make you understand properly. So let's see what is the next line says. saying, the work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair, where they have left not one stone on a stone. So we will read first up to here, and let's see what the speaker points out here, that I think he is saying that the work of the hunters is another obstacle to the wall, right? And which kinds of hunters they may be, like it may be the the human beings who keep on doing hunting. So when they cross through that wall, it may happen that the stones they fall down, right? And they cause the damage to wall during the sport, and they don't make repair to those damages when they cross over the walls. They do not bother about their damages that they have just broken, or they have just created the gaps between the ball, right? And the speaker has to make regular repairs, as he points it in this line. Second line, I have come after them and made repair. So right, what he is saying, that the hunters, they do not bother about the repairing part. So it may be because the wall restricts the otherwise widespread of the hunting ground. Next lines, but they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. Now here the speaker continues to point out the trouble the hunters causes. They don't even hesitate to tear down the walls to find the rabbits from their hiding places to please their barking, yelping dogs, right? They are too busy in hunting that they do not bother about mending the walls that time. The gaps I mean, no one has seen them made of heard them made, but at the spring mending time we find them there. So despite of various contributing causes for the wall being torn down or fall down, the fact remains that nobody knows or hears about how and when the gaps actually are formed in the wall. But the speaker certainly discovers the gaps at the spring mending time, and that time he and his neighbor, they come to mend or to repair the wall. Next 12th to 15th line says, I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line and set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go. So here the speaker finally mentions his neighbor. He says he lets his neighbor across the dividing line know about the damages so they can repair them together, right? Because it is not only his duty to repair that, because it is dividing the two properties, both the narrators means of the poet and his neighbors. So both of them have to work, right? So they do that together, and one day they meet to go with the whole mending business, as they do it every year, right? Because every time something happen, that something they don't know what that doesn't want that there should be wall. So here the narrator clears that they keep the ball in between when they do the mending job. They even do not go on one side. That time also there is barrier between them, and that is what? Wall. To each the boulder that have fallen to each, and some are lobes and some so nearly balls. We have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. So here the speaker and the neighbor, both of them notice that the boulders means what? Stones, which have fallen to either sides. They find that some of these boulders look like loaves of bread, right? And some are round as balls, nearly balls, right? So some look like the round as ball, and we have to use a spell to make them balance, and they anticipate the difficulty in putting them to use and believe that it would need a spell to balance them together so that the boulders stand one another, right? So he is saying here that we have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until your backs are turned, right? So actually he says that we have to look that how to balance them, and actually it seems no matter what they do, the boulders fail to stick and fall down. They do lot of trouble actually to set them, but they fall once again. So out of despair, the neighbors yell at the stones to stay put until they turn their back, and they want to confirm that the wall stand intact as at least in their presence, and this is to indicate how difficult it was to mend the wall on the regular basis, right? So that's why the poet employs here, or he is introducing two words here, loaves and balls, right? To he is doing the comparison of the boulders with the loaves and the walls. So further he one more literary device he has used here, that for that the stones they so they could be yelled. So he is actually personifying here the stones, right? So this is what he has written in these lines. So I hope you have understood till here. I think it's enough for this section, this part of the video. Rest of the explanation we will do in the next video. Till then you have to do one work. I'll send you the the pictures of the explanation of line by line, so that you have to write down in your notebook, so that you will not forget that for your examination purpose, right? So this poem is actually very interesting and very beautifully written. So please read it once again, and if you have any doubts, so you can call me and you can ask me. Thank you very much. Stay safe, stay healthy. So dear students, here you can see the explanation of line 1 to 4, where the lines we are covering from something there is two, even two can pass abreast, right? So in these lines the poet says that there must be something in the vicinity or the area that breaks down the wall again and again, and perhaps the water beneath the ground is frozen, which causes cracks in wall. So the cracks grow so wide that the people can pass through it and walk in the same direction, right? This is lines 1 to 4. Next, when we talk about line 5 to 11, the work of hunters' time will find them there. So in these lines here, the poet rejects the idea that the wall could have broken by hunters. He himself has repaired after hunters have rearranged the stones to allow rabbits to come out the holes for the dogs to catch. But the cracks have now appeared on the walls, made by something that is unseen and unheard. So just take the screenshot of these slides and note down these in your notebooks. Let's come to line number 12 to 15. It is from I let my neighbor till between us and as we go. So in these lines the poet says that the wall is between two lands separated by a hill, and the farmer who lives on the other side of the hill is informed about the cracks and the gaps in the wall, and a day is fixed on which they both meet and walk along the wall, each on his sides, watching the damage and repairing the damage. Last 16 to 19 lines, to each the boulders still backs are turned. In these lines the poet says that he and his neighbor each take the responsibility to restore the stones that have fallen. This is a difficult task, as the stones are not always in the same size and shape. Some are rectangle and some are round, right? So this is the explanation of the part what we have done today. So do it in your notebook. Thank you very much.